They won't tell you this in your annual physical, but let's be completely honest here. If you've given up on maintaining an active, intimate life after 60, you're very likely silently destroying not just your virility, but also your cardiovascular health, your mental clarity, and your strength as a man, and you probably don't even realize it. No, this isn't an uncomfortable locker room conversation or some inappropriate topic. This is a medical reality backed by decades of scientific research, and the consequences of ignoring this truth can be devastating, not just for your sexual performance, but for your vital energy, your masculine confidence, your heart health, and most importantly, your identity as a man. I'm Dr. Ricardo Martinez, a specialist in andrology and men's health. I've dedicated the last 15 years of my career to understanding how the male body ages and, most importantly, finding natural and effective ways to keep it vigorous, potent, and full of sexual vitality for much longer. And one of the most silent threats I see in my daily practice is this: too many men, after 60, whether from shame, resignation, or mistaken beliefs, completely abandon their sexual lives, and with it, lose a fundamental tool for maintaining their virility and overall health. This is what might surprise you and forever change how you view your masculinity and your body. Regular sexual activity, including self-stimulation, is not simply a pleasure of youth that must be abandoned with age. In fact, it's one of the most powerful mechanisms your male body retains to regulate testosterone, protect your prostate, strengthen your heart, maintain mental clarity, and preserve that inner confidence that defines you as a man. If you've set aside this part of your life or never considered its medical importance, the price you might be paying for this neglect is much higher than you ever imagined. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal exactly what happens to your male body, your mind, and your spirit when intimacy disappears from your life. And what I'm about to share could completely revolutionize your perspective on masculinity after 60. Before we continue, if you care about staying strong, virile, and independent as the man you've always been, I invite you to subscribe to our Life After 65 channel, where every week I share medical secrets that the pharmaceutical industry prefers you don't know about. And if this message is resonating with you, write yes in the comments. Your interactions help us bring this vital information to more men who, like you, deserve to live with dignity and sexual potency, regardless of age. Now let's start with the first consequence, one that directly attacks the heart of masculinity and is rarely discussed openly in medical consultations. When I began my specialization in andrology, I never imagined that one of the most devastating and silent problems in my male patients would be something as fundamental as the gradual loss of erectile function from simple disuse. I vividly remember Carlos, a retired engineer at 67, a man who had always prided himself on his physical strength and leadership ability. He came to my office not because of acute pain, but because of deep frustration and shame that was consuming him from within. "Doctor," he told me with a broken voice, "I feel like my body has betrayed me. I no longer respond like before. My wife tells me it doesn't matter, but it matters to me. I feel like less of a man." What Carlos didn't understand, and what most men completely ignore, is that the penis, like any muscle in the body, needs regular exercise to maintain its strength, responsiveness, and vascular health. An erection isn't a simple mechanical act. It's a complex vascular process that depends on optimal blood flow to the corpora cavernosa of the penis. When a man stops having regular sexual activity, whether with a partner or through self-stimulation, these tissues begin to gradually atrophy. The arteries that supply the penis become less flexible, erectile tissue loses elasticity, and neurological response weakens significantly. It's what andrologists call disuse atrophy, a process that can be completely reversible if acted upon in time, but devastating if ignored for years. Without regular stimulation that activates blood flow to the genital area, the tissues of the penis literally begin to wither, like a plant that doesn't receive water. The smooth muscle cells of the corpora cavernosa are gradually replaced by fibrous tissue, less flexible and less capable of filling with blood. This not only affects the quality of erections, but also their size and firmness. Carlos had fallen into a devastating vicious cycle. Upon experiencing a less firm erection, he began avoiding intimacy out of shame. By avoiding intimacy, his erectile function deteriorated even more. As it deteriorated further, his masculine confidence completely collapsed. When I explained that he needed to regularly exercise his sexual function, even if he didn't have an available partner, he initially resisted. "Doctor, at my age that's no longer appropriate," he told me. But when I showed him the scientific studies demonstrating how regular stimulation can literally regenerate erectile tissue and improve vascular function, his perspective completely changed. 6 months later, Carlos returned to my office transformed. "I didn't just recover my function," he told me with a smile. "I recovered my confidence as a man. My wife says I look 10 years younger." This is the power of understanding that male sexuality has no expiration date. It just needs regular maintenance. But the loss of erectile function is just the tip of the iceberg. The second consequence directly attacks the essence of masculinity, testosterone levels. And this is where the story becomes even more concerning, because what begins as simple lack of sexual activity ends up profoundly altering the hormonal chemistry that defines your strength, your energy, and your masculine character. Recently, I treated Ricardo, a 64-year-old former military man, a man who throughout his life had been synonymous with energy, determination, and natural leadership. He came to see me because he felt like a shadow of himself. "Doctor," he confessed to me, "I wake up tired. I have trouble making decisions. I no longer have that spark that characterized me. My family asks me what's wrong, but I don't understand it myself." His blood tests revealed what I already suspected. His testosterone levels had dropped dramatically, not just from age, but from the complete lack of sexual activity during the last 3 years. Here's the truth that most doctors don't clearly explain to you. Testosterone and sexual activity have a fascinating circular relationship. Testosterone stimulates sexual desire, but sexual activity also stimulates testosterone production. When a man stops being sexually active, his body interprets this signal as no longer needing to maintain high levels of this fundamental male hormone. It's as if the body said, "If you're not going to use it, I don't need to produce it." Testosterone doesn't just control libido. It's the hormone that maintains your muscle mass, bone density, vital energy, concentration ability, motivation, and that inner confidence that characterizes you as a man. When levels drop, you don't just lose sexual interest, you lose general vitality. Scientific studies are conclusive on this matter. Men who maintain regular sexual activity, even after age 70, show significantly higher testosterone levels than those who have completely given up intimacy. Sexual stimulation, orgasm, and even anticipation of sexual pleasure activate a hormonal cascade that includes not only testosterone, but also growth hormone and DHEA, all fundamental for maintaining masculine vitality. Ricardo, after our conversation, and with the commitment to reactivate his personal intimate life, saw dramatic changes in just a few weeks. "It's like I woke up from lethargy," he told me. "I have energy to exercise, to make decisions, to lead my household again. My wife says I became the man she fell in love with again." But if you thought low testosterone was concerning, wait until you learn about the third consequence, one that directly attacks your cardiovascular health and could be putting your life at risk without you knowing it. The connection between sexual health and heart health is so close that modern cardiologists consider erectile dysfunction as an early predictor of future heart problems. This brings me to Fernando's story, a 69-year-old accountant who came to see me after a cardiovascular scare. His cardiologist had told him that his arteries showed signs of hardening, but that it wasn't critical yet. However, when I delved into his medical history, I discovered that he had completely lost his erectile function 3 years before his first cardiac symptoms. The explanation is simple but terrifying. The arteries of the penis are smaller than the arteries of the heart. When there are circulation problems, the penis is the first organ to manifest symptoms because its blood vessels become obstructed first. But when a man maintains regular sexual activity, he's literally exercising his entire cardiovascular system. During sexual arousal and orgasm, the heart accelerates, blood pressure temporarily increases, and the entire circulatory system receives natural cardiovascular training. It's like intense but pleasurable cardiac exercise. Regular sexual activity keeps arteries flexible, improves peripheral circulation, and strengthens the heart muscle. Fernando had deprived his heart of this natural exercise for years. When I explained that reactivating his sexual life would not only improve his emotional well-being, but could literally be a lifesaver for his heart, he fully committed to the plan. A year later, he had not only recovered his sexual function, but his cardiovascular analysis showed notable improvement. His cardiologist, without knowing about our approach, asked him what had changed in his lifestyle. I told him I had returned to living fully. Fernando told me, laughing. I didn't specify what that meant, but my heart knows. Comment below which city or country you're watching from. Like this video if it's resonating with you. And subscribe to Life After 65 so you don't miss what's coming next. Your engagement helps us reach more men who need to hear this truth. Now, we reach the fourth consequence. One that many men don't expect, but can be devastating for their emotional and mental well-being. Let's talk about how lack of sexual activity can silently plunge a strong man into a depression he doesn't even recognize himself. Antonio, a 71-year-old retired businessman, came to see me recommended by his daughter, who was concerned about the radical change in her father's personality. He was a cheerful, optimistic man, always with projects, she told me. Since he became a widower 2 years ago, it's like he's turned off. He's no longer interested in his businesses, avoids family gatherings, and spends most of his time watching television. Antonio himself didn't understand what was happening to him. Doctor, I'm not sad about my wife, I've already grieved. Nothing excites me anymore. Nothing motivates me. What Antonio didn't understand is that he had lost more than a life companion. He had lost his connection to a fundamental part of his masculine identity. Sexual activity is not just physical pleasure, it's a powerful emotional regulator, especially for men. During orgasm, the male brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals that includes dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. These substances don't just generate momentary well-being, they have lasting effects on mood, motivation, and perception of life. Dopamine is especially crucial for men because it's the molecule of motivation, of the drive to conquer goals and face challenges. Without this regular stimulation, many men fall into an apathy they confuse with the wisdom of age, when in reality it's a chemical deficiency. Male depression is different from female depression and often goes unnoticed because it doesn't manifest as obvious sadness. It disguises itself as irritability, loss of interest, chronic fatigue, and that feeling that nothing is worthwhile. I've seen strong and successful men become shadows of themselves, not because of deep existential problems, but because of the lack of sexual stimulation that kept their brain chemistry balanced. Antonio, after reconnecting with his personal sexuality and eventually with a new partner, experienced a remarkable transformation. It's like I turned on an engine that had been off, he told me. I have plans, projects, desire to conquer new things. My family says I became myself again. But wait, because the fifth consequence affects something every man deeply values, the quality of his sleep and his physical recovery capacity. Miguel, a 65-year-old former athlete, came to consult me after months of insomnia that were affecting his entire life. Doctor, I go to bed exhausted, but my mind doesn't disconnect. I toss and turn in bed until 3 or 4 in the morning. And when I finally fall asleep, I wake up more tired than when I went to bed. Miguel had maintained a rigorous exercise routine, took care of his diet, and had eliminated afternoon caffeine, but nothing seemed to work. When I inquired about his intimate life, I discovered that he had completely given up any sexual activity since his wife's death 2 years earlier. Male orgasm is one of the most powerful natural sleep inducers that exist. During climax, the body releases prolactin, a hormone that generates a deep sense of relaxation and drowsiness. Endorphins are also released that relieve muscle tension and reduce cortisol levels, the stress hormone that keeps the mind in a state of alertness. For men especially, orgasm activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and recovery. Without this regular activation, many men get trapped in a state of chronic hypervigilance that makes restorative sleep impossible. Miguel had eliminated from his life the most effective natural relaxant he possessed. When I explained how sexual activity could be the key to recovering his deep sleep, he was initially skeptical. At my age, doctor, that seems like too simple a solution. But when he began to reincorporate sexual stimulation into his nighttime routine, the changes were immediate. The first night I slept 6 hours straight, he told me, amazed. In 2 weeks I was sleeping like when I was 30, and I don't just sleep better. I wake up with real energy, like my body can finally recover completely. The sixth consequence directly attacks the health of your prostate. And this is perhaps the most dangerous because it develops silently for years before manifesting obvious symptoms. Roberto, a 73-year-old engineer, came to my office after a routine visit with his urologist that had revealed a significant increase in his PSA, the marker used to detect prostate problems. "Doctor, my physician says it could be the beginning of something serious. I feel betrayed by my own body," he confessed with evident concern. When I reviewed his history, I discovered that Roberto had stopped having regular sexual activity more than 4 years ago, believing it was appropriate for his age. The male prostate is not a passive organ, it's an active gland that constantly produces fluids. When there's no regular ejaculation, these fluids accumulate, thicken, and create a perfect environment for chronic inflammation. Think of the prostate as a drainage system that needs regular cleaning. Without sexual activity, prostatic secretions stagnate, which can lead to chronic prostatitis, prostate enlargement, and even increase the risk of prostate cancer. Medical studies are conclusive. Men who maintain regular ejaculation have a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. Ejaculation acts as a natural cleaning mechanism that expels toxins, bacteria, and old cells that could become problematic. Roberto had deprived his prostate of this natural maintenance for years. When I explained that reactivating his sexual life wasn't just about pleasure, but about active medical prevention, he completely changed his perspective. "I never thought that taking care of my prostate could be so simple and natural," he told me. 6 months later, not only had his PSA levels decreased notably, but he had eliminated the urinary symptoms that were beginning to bother him. "My urologist is impressed with the improvement," he told me. I told him I had made some lifestyle changes, but I didn't specify which ones. He says whatever I'm doing, to keep doing it. Finally, we reached the 7th and most devastating consequence, one that attacks the very essence of what it means to be a man, the gradual loss of masculine confidence and connection to your virile identity. Eduardo, a 68-year-old former executive, came to see me in a state I'll never forget. He was a man who had led teams of hundreds of people, who had made million-dollar decisions, who had been respected and admired for his strength of character. But the man I had in front of me seemed like a shadow of that description. "Doctor, I feel like I'm no longer the man I was. I avoid mirrors. I feel insecure in social meetings. My family sees me differently. It's like I've lost something essential about myself, and I don't know how to get it back." Eduardo had fallen into the cruelest trap of male aging, confusing sexual inactivity with maturity, when in reality, he was abandoning a fundamental part of his identity. Male sexuality is not just about the physical act, it's about feeling vital, potent, capable of conquering and seducing. When a man gives up this part of himself, he doesn't just lose a bodily function, he loses a deep connection to his masculine essence. Masculine confidence is intimately linked to the perception of one's own virility. A man who feels sexually vital walks differently, talks differently, makes decisions differently. He radiates an energy that attracts natural respect and admiration. Eduardo had cut this connection years ago, believing it was the mature and appropriate thing to do. But in doing so, he had lost that inner spark that defined him as a man. "Doctor, it's not just about sex," he confessed to me. "It's about feeling like a complete, vital, attractive man." That security, I had to face any challenge. When I explained that his virility had no expiration date, that his body still retained all the capacity for passion and pleasure, something lit up in his eyes. Months after reconnecting with his sexuality, Eduardo returned transformed. "I didn't just recover my intimate life," he told me with a smile I hadn't seen in our first consultation. "I recovered my security, my leadership, my presence. My wife says I became the conquering man she fell in love with 40 years ago." As I reflect on all these years dedicated to helping men recover their vitality and inner strength, what impacts me most are not just the physical improvements they experience, but the complete transformation I see in their attitude toward life. A man who reconnects with his sexuality doesn't just improve his erectile function or hormone levels. He recovers that essence that defines him as a male: confidence, determination, energy to conquer objectives, and the presence that inspires natural respect. I've seen this transformation hundreds of times, and each time it confirms a fundamental truth I want you to deeply engrave in your mind. Your virility is not a memory from the past that you must resign yourself to losing. It's a force that lives in you right now, waiting to be awakened, cultivated and celebrated. Each of the consequences we've discussed, the loss of erectile function, testosterone drop, cardiovascular problems, silent depression, insomnia, prostate risks, and loss of masculine confidence, are completely reversible when you decide to take action. You don't need expensive medications, invasive procedures, or complicated treatments. Your own body retains all the necessary mechanisms to function again as the vital and potent man you've always been. Here at Life After 65, I've had the privilege of guiding thousands of men in this process of rediscovery and revitalization. And I want you to understand something fundamental. Maintaining an active sexual life after 60 is not about uncontrolled lust or inappropriate behaviors. It's about honoring your masculinity, caring for your integral health, and preserving that vitality that defines you as a man. It's about understanding that your body was designed for pleasure, passion, and intimate connection throughout your life, not just during the first decades. Self-stimulation, intimacy with your partner, exploration of your body, and cultivation of your sexual energy are legitimate and necessary forms of masculine self-care. They're not indulgences, they're medical maintenance. They're not obsessions, they're active prevention. They're not signs of immaturity, they're declarations of vitality. And any belief, prejudice, or shame that prevents you from embracing this truth is literally stealing years of healthy and full life from you. If you've made it this far with me, it's because something inside you recognizes the truth of what I'm sharing. Maybe you yourself are experiencing some of these consequences. Maybe you've noticed that you no longer feel like the man you were. Maybe you've resignedly accepted that this is old age, when in reality your body is waiting for you to reactivate the machinery of your virility. My invitation to you is simple but powerful. Take the first step to reconnect with that part of yourself that you may have neglected, ignored, or abandoned. Start slowly, with curiosity and without judgment. Rediscover your body as the temple of masculinity it is. Allow yourself to explore, feel, awaken those sensations you may have avoided for years. You don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to justify anything to anyone. This is a personal journey of reconnection with your own masculine essence, and the benefits you'll experience go far beyond momentary pleasure. Better circulation, greater energy, restorative sleep, renewed confidence, prostate health, and that magnetic presence that characterizes truly vital men. Remember that age is just a number, but vitality is a choice. Your testosterone can return to optimal levels, your erectile function can recover the firmness of previous years, your energy can skyrocket, and your confidence as a man can shine again. All of this is possible when you decide to honor and care for your sexuality as the health and vitality tool it really is. If this message has touched something deep in you, if you feel it's time to recover that vital and potent version of yourself, don't keep this information to yourself. Give this video a like, share it with other men who need to hear this truth, and leave me a comment telling me what country or city you're watching from. Your story could inspire another man to take the step toward recovering his virility. And please, subscribe to Life After 65 because every week we share medical secrets and natural strategies so you can maintain your strength, energy, and masculine presence regardless of your age. Because being a real man has no expiration date. It just requires decision, action, and the courage to embrace all your masculinity.